guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be the Do I Have That Book challenge. I have my husband John sitting right behind the camera. He's going to be reading them to me, or the questions to me, and I'm going to see whether or not I have those books. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. This is timed, by the way, so.
Do you have a book with deckled edges?
I do. I do have a book with deckled edges. Okay. Next.
Do you have a book with 3 or more people on the cover?
I do. I do. Somewhere. Does a horse count? No, that's 3 people.
Do you have a book based on another fictional story?
Does that mean like a retelling? What does that mean? Based like... What does that mean? Do I have a retelling? Oh, this is gonna murder me in time.
Don't you have the one that, like, the Disney stories retold?
I don't have any of the Twisted Tales. Where are you pointing?
I was scratching.
Oh. I was like, where? Tell me! The Sisters Grimm. That counts. That's based on fairy tales.
Do you have a book with a title 10 letters long?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Damn it.
Do you have a book with a title that starts and ends with the same letter?
Starts and ends with the same letter. This shouldn't be this hard. So do Obsidio.
Do you have a mass market paperback book?
I have lots of mass market paperbacks. We'll just go with this.
Do you have a book written by an author using a pen name?
Ugh. I do. And I'm too short for this shit. Okay.
Do you have a book with a character's name in the title?
Is this about Robin Hood? I'm gonna go with it.
You have others.
I do?
Aragon?
Oh, I do.
Do you have a book with 2 maps in it? Also Harry Potter.
Valid. 2 maps. That would be like a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Priory coming through.
Do you have a book that was turned into a TV show?
Yes.
Do you have a book written by someone who was originally famous for something else, i.e. celebrity, athlete, politician, TV personality, etc.?
Probably not. Famous for something.
You do, but I don't think you've read them.
You
haven't read them.
Are you talking about like
my golf books?
Yeah. I'm gonna try and avoid those. Unless I have any other options. Famous for something else. Okay, let's see. Nope. 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 I don't do celebrity books. They're usually awful. Was Tolkien famous for something else first? That would be handy.
I think he was. Wasn't he?
We're gonna go with it, and if I'm wrong, then I dock a point or something.
Do you have a book with a clock on the cover?
Do I?
Wait, isn't there a Clockwork Angel?
You know what? Clock is in the name. I'm gonna say that it counts.
There's no clock in it?
No,
On
it's
the cover?
not that kind of clockwork. But it counts because clock is in the title.
Keep up. Do you have a poetry book?
No, I don't. I don't do poetry. So we're just gonna move on from here. I don't even have anything in verse. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't have anything.
Don't you have an ebook that you just read that was in verse?
I borrowed it. So I don't own it.
Okay. Do you have a book with an award stamp on it?
Lots, I'm sure. What kind of award?
$50 of Grey?
I would cry if 50 Shades of Grey had won an award instead of
I
any
don't
of the
know.
other ones. Ah! Aha! The Michael something Prince Award for excellence. It counts.
Do you have a book written by an author with the same initials as you?
See, why did I not keep these in alphabetical order? Why is this my life? L, 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 L. Do I own anybody with the last name of L? Kaufman, Christoph, Hearn, Mass, Pierce, Huron.
Do you have a book of short stories? You do.
Like, is it the Pooh book?
Sherlock.
Oh, I do. We've also got the folk
King
tales.
Arthur.
I'm actually gonna go with the folk tales because it's prettier.
Do you have a book that is between 500 and 510 pages long? It's really specific.
I'm sure I do. Somewhere. I can't find things under this kind of 504.
Do you have a book that was turned into a movie?
Oh yeah. Lots of those. I'm gonna go with Ready Player One, just because I don't love Hunger Games anymore.
Do you have a graphic novel?
I do. We'll go with Saga.
And the last one. Do you have a book written by 2 or more authors?
Give Kevin Hearn some love. For the first book that was in the challenge, it was, do you have a book that has deckled edges? And I do. It is Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. I just talked about this in my July and August wrap-up, I think. It's got deckled edges. It's a heist story with a fantasy element that takes place in 1800s alternative history France, and that's all you really need to know about it. I don't love deckled edges. I think that they make it hard to turn the page, but it is what it is. The next one was, do you have a book that has 3 or more people on the cover? And I do. It took me a minute to find it, but The Fifth Sorceress by Robert Newcomb. It has 3 people and 2 horses. It is a high fantasy story. It's not really, well, I guess maybe it's like mid-fantasy. I don't know if it's really high fantasy. I don't think there's like dragons or anything. But it does take place in like a medieval kind of universe. There's like blood magic. There is kind of a little bit of genetic engineering. I don't really know how to describe it. It's been a long time since I've read it. But there's a chosen one. There's very magical sorceresses who are all evil. I haven't read it in a really long time. The third one is, do you have a book based on another fictional story? I think that this counts. I have The Sisters Grimm by Michael Buckley. I haven't actually read this yet, and I think that it's a middle grade. All I know is that It is kind of like a Brothers Grimm retelling, and it's based around the Grimm Brothers fairy tales, which is another story, so it counts. The next one is Do You Have a Book with a Title that's 10 or more letters long, and that is Bloodhound by Tamara Pierce. This is the second book in her Becca Cooper trilogy. I don't really know if I can give anything in this one away without giving away something in the first book, but it essentially follows Becca Cooper. This takes place in the same realm as Alana the Lioness Quartet, also by Tamara Pierce, but many hundreds of years in the past, I think. It follows Becca Cooper, who is in the Provost Guard, which is kind of like their police force. It's all in the format of her journal, as she follows these different cases that she's trying to solve. This entire series is absolutely fantastic, and I absolutely highly recommend it. Next is Do You Have a Book with a Title that starts and ends with the same letter, and I have Obsidio by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. In case you've been living under a rock, this is the third installment in their space opera series that is all like told in a mixed media format. I think it was kind of actually my least favorite of the three, but it still got 5 stars because that's how incredible the entire series is. So this just follows different characters as they are all trying to take down this corporation that has nefarious purposes, I guess you could say. I don't want to give too much away from it. You probably already know what I'm talking about, so yeah, Obsidio. Next is Do You Have a Mass Market Paperback? And I do. I have an entire row shelf pretty much of them, and they're just all mixed in. I've got a ton of mass markets. But for this, I picked Kristen Britton's Green Rider, which I apparently bought at Borders, and that makes me really sad now that I see that. But anyway, this is the first book in her Green Rider series, which is taking a really, really, really long time to complete. But you follow Kerrigan, who is a girl, I think she's from a small town. I don't remember if she comes from an abusive family or not, but she decides to join the King's Green Riders, which is essentially the messenger service for the kingdom. She gets into dangerous situations. She ends, I think that she has to take over for a Green Rider because she finds one laying dead and she finishes delivering his message, and that's how she gets sucked into the messenger service. It's kind of got Onyx and Ivory vibes, but like way before Onyx and Ivory actually happened, and I kind of liked the entire Green Rider series better, but it's not done yet, so we'll see. For Do You Have an Author Writing a Book Under a Pen Name, I have, what is this called? Naked in Death by J.D. Robb, which is Nora Roberts' pen name. That is the pen name that she uses for her like mystery series. This entire like in-depth series is absurd. I think it's like 50 or 60 books long at this point. I made it to like 20 of them maybe before I gave up, but they were really good. I really enjoyed them. But yeah, so Nora Roberts as a mystery writer. Next is Do You Have a Book with the character's name in the title? I Have Hood by Stephen Lawhead. I have not actually read this yet, but it is about Robin Hood, so it counts. That is literally all that I know. I think it's a Robin Hood retelling. Next is Do You Have a Book with 2 maps in it? And for this, Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon came through. This is a two-hander. This is a chunky book. But yeah, Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon is a high fantasy. It has 2 maps in it. You're following several different storylines. There's dragons, there's politics, there's a sapphic romance. It's pretty much everything that you could want. It's fantastic. Next is Do You Have a Book that was turned into a TV show? I have City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I have lots of books actually that have been turned into TV shows. I probably could have picked The Discovery of Witches too. The Dresden Files, a whole bunch of them. But this was the first one I saw. So this is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. You follow Clary and Jace. Clary learns that she is part Shadowhunter, which is a half-angel race that exists to hunt demons and save humans from demons, essentially. It gets more complicated than that, but that's the gist. I honestly kind of liked the TV show a little bit better, and I know that that's a really unpopular opinion, but yeah, so City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Next is Do I Have a Book that was written by an author who was originally famous for something else? This is a stretch. I'm going to go right out and admit that it's a stretch, but I picked The Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien. He was a war hero and a poet and other stuff before he actually published these, I think. Maybe. So we're gonna go with it. Everybody knows what The Lord of the Rings is at this point, so I'm really not gonna go on and explain it. The next one is, do you have a book with a clock on the cover? This was a stretch. I'm gonna go out and say that it's a stretch yet again, but I picked Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare because clock is in the title, and I'm pretty sure that that's Big Ben on the spine, and there's a circle on it, so I'm calling that a clock. And we're just gonna go with that. So, yeah, Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Number 13 was, do you have a poetry book? And I'm just going to come right out and say that I do not. I do not own a single poetry book. I don't even own a book in verse. Next was, do you have a book with an award on the cover? And after much searching, I found Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a sci-fi kind of dystopian utopia, I guess you can call it. It has won the Michael Prance Award for Excellence in your... I can't read what that says, it's really worn out. It has an award, that's all that matters. This takes place in a dystopian kind of utopia in which humanity has defeated death, it has defeated all illnesses have a cure, so nobody dies anymore unless they are killed off by a scythe, which generally they just use different manners of murder, I guess you could call it, to kill off people to try and control the population. And this follows two teenagers who were chosen as apprentices to a scythe, and you follow them through their training and a little bit afterwards. 15 was, do you have a book with the author whose initials are the same as yours? And I chose The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I guess technically this counts as an author writing under a pen name as well, because Christina Lauren is actually two people writing under one name, but whatever. The CNL works, so it counts. This is an adult romance, essentially following its enemies to lovers, and you follow the maid of honor at a wedding and the best man, as they are the only two that don't get food poisoning at this entire wedding, and so they are told to go on the honeymoon of the bride and groom together because it's non-refundable, it's non-cancelable, and without them going, it will be a wasted trip. And it was all expenses paid, so they decide to go, and on the way, they fall in love, and it's super adorable, and I gave this 5 stars. The next one was, do you have a book of short stories? And we have a few of these, like Barnes & Noble's collector's editions, but I chose A Treasury of Irish Fairy and Folktales. It's just a collection of, like, Irish mythology, folktales. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got these gold sprayed edges. It's beautiful. But I haven't read it yet, but the name is pretty self-explanatory as to what it is. Next was, do you have a book that is between 500 and 510 pages long? And after searching pretty much every single book in my shelf, it felt like, I got to Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. This is 504 pages to the very end. This is the sequel to Scythe. I haven't read it yet, but I already told you what the first book was about, so this continues that. Next was, do you have a book that has been turned into a movie? I chose Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This was, I watched the movie first, and honestly I loved it, and then I read the book, and I loved it even more. This takes place in a world where everybody is obsessed with playing a VR video game. The creator of this game dropped a whole bunch of clues and a treasure hunt, and whoever is the first to solve all of the clues wins the prize at the end, which I believe is like ownership of the game and the company, which is pretty much the biggest thing in this entire world, so he is loaded at the end. And the main character of this book is the first person to solve the first clue, and everything kind of cascades from there to see if he can beat the major corporation that's also trying to win the game. Next was, do you have a graphic novel? And I chose Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This is the only one that I've read, but I also have 2 and 3 as well. It essentially follows the daughter of a Romeo and Juliet type couple as they are running away from each of their races that are feuding, and you watch her grow up, and I don't know what else happens because that's as far as this takes it, honestly. The last one on this list was, do you have a book written by 2 or more authors? I had a lot to choose from. Obviously, I've got all of the Jay Kaufman and Amy Kristoffs, but I went with, what is this called? But I went with Kill the Farm Boy by Kevin Hearn and Delilah Dawson. This is a very punny, kind of satirical take on every single fantasy trope that you've ever seen. The Chosen One is not really the Chosen One. He actually dies real quick in the beginning, and everybody else is forced to try and continue on with the quest. It has a fairy godmother, but she's drunken, and she's kind of dirty, and it's a whole thing. Every single part of this book is absolutely hilarious, and I highly recommend it. So that was the Do I Have This Book challenge. I tag everybody who's watching this if you guys actually want to do it. Everybody's probably already done this video already, and everybody has also probably done it a lot faster than I did because I was stuck on a couple of those questions. But that is all I have for you, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!